I can't tell you about the last time that I got high. I can't tell you about the 87th time that I got high. But I can tell you about that very first time. The first time that I did opiates, it was a feeling that I had found what I had been looking for.
When I took the opioids for the first time, I felt like I could take on the world. I didn't care about anything or anyone.
He told me at some point that they made him feel like Superman. What 16-year-old kid doesn't want to feel like Superman? And I honestly think he had no intention of ever dying from this disease.
One of the things that we're always told is, well, once they hit rock bottom, they're going to wake up. But you don't know that rock bottom is way down there.
There was a month where every morning I was waking up in a different hospital from an overdose.
I didn't use heroin until after I got out of jail, and I overdosed the first time I used it.
That drug is so strong and so powerful that it just calls you.
I'm here because I have no other option. I literally lost everything that I have worked hard for.
Opioids are wiping out our generation.
These kids are battling every single day.
Someone has to do something. Someone has to talk about it. It's an epidemic.
Becca interview, Mark 1.
Sorry.
You were not expecting that, Becca.
No, that only happened in movies.
I was born in Baltimore, but I grew up on Kent Island. I was very outgoing, bubbly, and I loved to make people laugh.
Jenny was wonderful, funny. She was a comedian, actually.
My mom was probably my best friend. She's always been my biggest supporter, my #1 fan.
I think Jenny, pre-addiction, was very loving and kind and really cared about people, cared about family, and herself.
I got pregnant with Kira when I was 19. I had her when I was 20. The day that I delivered Kira was chaotic. They told me that there was no option for me other than a C-section. I did not think about pain medication or anything of the sort. I wasn't given an option. It just was, this what's happening, and buckle up for the ride, basically.
Jenny started struggling after she had her daughter, and she was prescribed opioids for pain medicine.
I had no concerns being prescribed pain pills because I trusted the doctors, and I didn't realize how serious the situation was.
Cameron came into this world with a rocky start. When he was born, I had to have an emergency C-section because he wasn't getting enough oxygen. But after that, I mean, he flourished. I mean, he was walking before he was a year old. He was talking young. He accelerated the older he got. In high school, he was in advanced placement classes, and he was just always really smart, very intelligent.
Cameron was always, he was outgoing. He played a lot of different types of sports.
Very compassionate person. You know, he was always for the underdog.
Life was pretty normal. I mean, I would say, white picket fence type family. We didn't move around a lot. It was pretty stable family environment.
Cameron and I grew up together. We went to school starting in kindergarten. We were pretty much as close as two people could be without being, blood related.
I mean, he was definitely part of our family. He was a second son, he was a brother. He was the kid that you really just wanted your kids to be friends with. He just fit in. He was comfortable, he was easy. He was a nice kid.
I got a phone call one day at work from one of his best friends saying that he had Cameron in his truck and that he was taking him to the urgent care because Cameron broke his collarbone. When we were urgent care, they took x-rays and basically said he was going to need surgery. I was there, with him when he had the surgery and then picked him up when he was in recovery, and they gave me a prescription. And you do whatever the doctor tells you to do. So I filled the prescription.
I mean, he told me he had been prescribed them, but we were 15, 16. If the doctor says, hey, use this for your pain, we didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it at the time.
It's what you did. You got your pills, you got better, you were out of pain, and you went back to playing sports.
3 months later, Cameron broke his other collarbone. Cameron was prescribed more opioids after that injury. So he had 2 prescriptions within about a 3-month period. I mean, the changes were gradual at first. He was ditching school, wrestling practice was starting, he was missing wrestling practice. He just wasn't himself. His grades were plummeting. Something was just off with him. Drugs was the last thing that I ever suspected. I had taken him to a counseling session, and the counselor asked all the right questions and figured it out. So that's how I found out. Otherwise, I don't know how much longer it would have been before I figured out what was going on.
I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. Didn't always know I wanted to be an OB/GYN, just kind of gravitated towards that. I've done probably 1,500 to 2,000 cesarean sections in my career. Not using opioids for cesarean sections and not using opioids for GYN surgery is the quest I'm on right now. We as physicians can wholly prevent the opioid epidemic from continuing by not writing for opioids. There's a direct line between writing too much opioids to heroin users. Nobody starts, I believe, with heroin. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, yeah, I think I'll become a heroin addict today. We doctors could be more thoughtful in the way we dispense drugs. What opioids do, instead of treating the pain, they fool the brain. The difference between, say, an opioid and a other type of pain medication, so you have what are called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents. What they do is they actually treat the pain at the pain source. So since we stopped using opioids, we've noticed that our patients are doing better. I remember one of my first patients, 3.5 hours after her surgery, I decided I wanted to see how she was doing. So I walked into a room and she wasn't there. Walked back down the hall and she's standing there, drinking a cup of coffee, leaning against the door jamb, telling her boyfriend to go get her a cheeseburger. This was 3.5 hours after surgery. It was amazing. It was an epiphany. After that, we were on a roll.
I grew up right outside of Houston in Sugar Land, Texas. My childhood was a very mentally lonely childhood. I had twin sisters that are older than me, so it was kind of, I never felt like I had anybody with me. My dad's from California, my mom's from Israel, so it's 2 different types of parenting techniques that they used. We had moved to Las Vegas when I was 14, and I was very upset. I didn't have any interest or really care for drugs, but then when we moved to Las Vegas, it was like, well, I'm gonna show you. And I remember I was waiting for the bus. A kid that rode my bus had a dislocated shoulder, and he offered me 2 pain pills and said, you want to try these? And there was no hesitation. Hell yes. I can't tell you about the last time that I got high. I can't tell you about the 87th time that I got high, but I can tell you about that very first time where I was the second I felt it and the rest of that day. My personal response to other families is that it can happen to you
It's not a disease that occurs only to the low socioeconomic class. It's important for me to get this message out for two reasons. Number one, I deeply care about my patients. I want my patients to have a quick recovery and a full return to activities of daily living without having this harbinger of opioids over their heads. The second reason is a little more personal. And I'll cry, I apologize. I unfortunately have a daughter who is a recovering heroin addict. One of the reasons that opioid dependency is so prevalent is because opioids feel good. If you've ever had them, they give you a sense of euphoria. I think that when that molecule hits the brain, people enjoy it.
Someone tried to explain like the high off of heroin and stuff, and I've never really been able to like kind of put it in words, but like imagine you're driving and it's raining so hard that you can barely see. The anxiety, the stress, like should I pull over, should I not, what do I do? I'm scared, you know, and then all of a sudden you go under a bridge and it's not raining anymore and it's clear. You know, it's kind of that like, whew, you know, and it's equivalent to the feeling of immediate gratification.
When I took the opioids for the first time, it was the best feeling. I felt like Supermom. I felt like I could take on the world, and I honestly felt like I was a better mother on them than not on them. I was prescribed oxycodone and was taking them for my surgery and continued taking them for a few years. I was so wrapped up in this life of make money, buy the pills. That was my life. It did take its toll on who I was, my personality, you know, and that feeling of being super mom was long gone.
When Jenny would come home at night, her eyes were different, and she wouldn't look at me directly. You know, I would question her about, are you on something? Are you taking something? And she would deny it.
When I did heroin for the first time, it made me feel disgusting. I hated it. I knew that it was not a good idea, but I just wanted to feel better. I became the person that I resented, you know, the most. You know, it came to a point where I had asked my mother to take care of my daughter because I couldn't take care of myself, much less her.
There was a time where working and taking care of Kira was just not, you know, kind of the priority.
The second time I went to rehab, I stayed a little bit longer, but I still wasn't fully ready. And in between that second time at rehab to my last time, I had ended up going to jail 3 times.
So when she was in jail, I went to the house, and I found all the things that they were doing. And to see that the electric was off and there was no running water, it was sickening, actually. She was being charged with some pretty serious charges. Her addiction had gotten to the worst that it ever was. I mean, you go through a array of emotions, but mainly I was worried that now she's facing jail time and Kira's back with me.
The last time I was there was the hardest for me. It was my daughter's birthday while I was in there, and I got to see what it was like if I was dead. That was kind of my awakening that, like, I don't want to die. I want to be in her life. I just don't want to do this anymore. It destroyed me, basically. Sorry. I might need a tissue. Thank you.
Take your time.
Sorry, I was trying really hard not to cry.
Take your time.
Okay.
He told me at some point that they made him feel like Superman. What 16-year-old kid doesn't want to feel like Superman? Once his pills ran out and once he wasn't able to get prescriptions anymore, you know, he needed to figure out a way to keep from getting sick. You know, heroin was a logical step. It's a lot cheaper than pills and it's a lot easier to get. The word heroin to me was like a 1970s you know, rock star type drug. I mean, it didn't happen to 16-year-old kids that lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When we figured out that it was heroin, I kind of, at first was relieved. Like there was a sense of relief, like, okay, phew, now I know what it is, now let's fix it. And I asked the counselor, I was like, okay, what do we do to fix this? Now we know what it is. And I just remember her shaking her head and she said, it's not that easy.
It's a pretty sudden progression, you know, once he got addicted.
And we were shocked. I mean, that doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen to us, to our friends.
I mean, yeah, you hear about it, but it happens to other people. It doesn't happen to people I know.
As Cameron's addiction progressed, in the back of my mind, I always knew that there was a chance that he was gonna succumb to this disease. So he had had multiple months of sober time under his belt. And so for him, when he went back to using, you know, he used the same amount that he used before, and that's what ended up causing him to overdose. So when I found him, it was 7:30 in the morning. I was getting ready to go running with a neighbor, and we were gonna meet outside at 7:30, and I went into his room to check on him, and he was passed away in his bed.
So as I'm walking up into the courtyard, my father is sitting on the bench. He only sits on the bench in the courtyard when something terrible has happened. But I think he stood up. It's like, Cameron's gone. And he said my mom was over at Jen's house, and I just remember saying I need to be there. I just knew that's where I needed to be at that time.
It was like a dream. It was a complete shock. Like I knew in my heart that it was extremely possible that this was gonna happen, but I never really thought that it would happen.
We had no idea what was going to happen to Cameron. Although in the back of your mind, you know that the worst can happen, which it did, and that would be death by overdose. It was a devastating day.
Overall, if you had one thing to say to Cameron right now, looking back on this journey, what would that be?
I just tell him I loved him.
Me too.
When I first heard that she was an opioid addict, it couldn't happen to me. I'm a doctor. My wife is a college graduate. I've got 3 other kids who are college graduates. It doesn't happen in my family, in my socioeconomic class.
First time that I did opiates, it was a feeling that I had found what I had been looking for. Calm, quiet, peace. It was as if I was embraced by a really warm blanket of quietness. It was that feeling of, I absolutely need this and will do anything to have this feeling. And one weekend I didn't have any pain pills, and I didn't understand why my body was physically in so much pain. I was informed actually by the person who gave me opiates for the first time that I was in withdrawal. And even knowing that, I continued to get high. He told me that as I was getting high, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I just have to have it all the time. So you just chasing a dragon, just constantly chasing something, chasing a pill, powder, a rush. I wouldn't even consider, I was alive but not living. I had graduated to heroin and meth because the pills got expensive. There was a month where every morning at 6 a.m. I was waking up at a different hospital from an overdose. And it just kind of became like, okay, thank you, can I have my stuff, discharge me, I'm gonna go get high again. After you overdose over 10 times and you are still alive, you get this like Superman ego about yourself that you just think you're invincible.
We've been told that we're supposed to let her reach rock bottom, but rock bottom is much further down than you or I can comprehend. It's a horror, it's a living horror.
I hadn't done heroin in about 11 months, and I don't know, I shot up heroin and I just fell into an abyss and I died. And I was actually mad that they woke me up because I was in such a peaceful state. That was scary. But at some point you stop caring. So the opioids told me that everything was okay, that, you know, you don't need anybody.
Someone has to do something. Someone has to talk about it because it's an epidemic.
80% of patients don't take all their opioids. 80% of those opioids are not locked up. And 80% of all current heroin users started on what's called diverted drugs. In other words, they found somebody's drugs in a medicine cabinet or somebody gave it to them. They started taking the opioids and then they couldn't have access to it. And heroin is cheap and heroin is much stronger.
The reason that I think that we're doing this is to help somebody be able to get a surgery without the use of opioids.
About a week or two into treatment, I had my spiritual awakening. And since that day, I've been clean ever since. I just celebrated 3 years clean and sober.
It was a blessing. It was a turnaround for Jenny's life.
I think what made me ready was I was just tired. I was tired of hating myself. I was tired of disappointing everyone that loved me, and I was just ready to surrender.
She is on a different road now, a different path in life.
Being up here working for Recovery in Motion has given me so much purpose in my life, and it's just a blessing every single day that I get to wake up and work.
She helps a lot of people every day, and if it wasn't for Jen, I don't think I would be here right now.
I feel like every day I'm so blessed to be able to do what I do, You know, every single day, if I help one person, then that's all that matters to me.
I have been heroin free for 98 days exactly.
I have a 3-year-old little girl who thinks I'm, you know, her superhero. And it kills me not being there for her.
What brought me here was sitting in jail for 9 months and just thinking about what my life had become. And I didn't want to live like that anymore because people were dying and I didn't want to die.
I'm here because I have no other option. I literally have lost everything that I have worked hard for, everything that I've loved, my children. And I have nothing else to do but either give up and die to this disease or keep on fighting. So that's why I'm here.
I think it's hard because you see the outside of the person, and on the inside, that person's real self is screaming for help, and you can't see that, you know? This is my office. This is where I work. The most, I think, emotional part of my office is my wall above me is all the friends that we've lost throughout the few years to opioid addiction. It happens so often, it's almost a numbing feeling, you know? It's so many that our brains don't know how to process it anymore. I know there was one time, I think I had 3 funerals in 1 week, and it hasn't stopped, you know, either, so it's just heart-wrenching. We're just, I think we're very fortunate, and I think that we know that, and we're grateful for where we used to be and where we are now. We have it really good, and we tell each other that all the time. Like, we constantly remind each other and, you know, bring up where we used to be to where we are now, and it's just, it's amazing.
You know, her as a mom, she's wonderful. I'm so proud of her and what she's done with Kira.
Kira and my relationship has been up and down. She had my mom and dad to rely on a lot of her life. I feel like today I can say that we have an amazing mother-daughter bond. I don't know what I would do without her. She is a little mini me, only better. She's so funny, she's so loving. She's just a blessing to me and what has kept me alive this whole time.
She needed to be with her mom, and that was one of the happiest days that, you know, I had, is letting Kira be with mom. Now they're a mom and daughter, and watching that relationship grow has been fantastic.
My mom is my best friend, and if kids could pick their moms like flowers, I would pick her.
I never realized, like, my family's pretty awesome. Like, I love being around them. That's my high today.
She has really done some wonderful things in the 3 years that she has been in recovery.
I would describe the journey that I've been on as remarkable, unbelievable, like almost surreal. It's been up and down, crazy. I don't know, I'm just blessed.
Her and I are just together forever, no matter what, and we always have each other's back.
You asked me, when I realized that I wanted to change. When this last time in detox, I had been woken up from a nap by one of the technicians telling me that there were 2 detectives there to see me because the man that I was getting high with was wanted for attempted murder. Well, that's like the final cross off the whole bucket list of getting high. Cops coming to see you in detox, you finally accomplished everything of being a drug addict, like it's time to get sober. I will always be an addict. It's a struggle dealing with every single day, but I feel much more strong. I feel stable.
Becca currently is sober for about 6 months now. I think she's reached the age where she no longer wants to be an addict. How's recovery going?
It's going good. It's hard. It's not very easy.
I bet.
My dad took a personal devastation in his life and turned it into a public awareness. That's what he did.
Her disease made me a better doctor, and therefore I changed my practice because of her. Is there anything that Mommy and I could have done to prevent this?
I don't think so.
Were we that stupid?
I don't think you guys were that stupid. I just think you guys were that ignorant. You weren't knowledgeable.
My hope for Becca is sobriety for the rest of her life. My hope for Becca is that she can reach her potential, go to college maybe, a career, a family.
Not every day's gonna be happy and not every day's great, but those moments where you are truly happy and you're actually laughing and not because you're high, it feels really good. It was a mess, a beautiful mess.
This is a book that Jennifer made, and it's all about Cameron. This is a song. It's called One Way Track to Hell. And in it, he describes his addiction and what he was going through.
Just one weekend in a bathroom full of homies, I was introduced to something that is phony. It tells you and promises you it will set you free, but I'm thinking to myself, does this substance even know me? No, but the obsession does. As you drifted to an eye-slouching buzz, you just smelt the fragrance, felt the temptation, and y'all already know here comes the justification.
Well, it gives you an insight what he was dealing with, and how, I guess, how drugs get a hold of you.
And of course I have a flash drive with all of his poems and everything on it, and so sometimes I just go back and listen to it.
Psych meds and oxys will capture you too, and that is the truth. As harsh as it seems, that is the truth. That is the truth. That is the truth. That is the
This is Serenity Mesa Youth Recovery Center. And every time we walk into this lodge, we see Cameron's Lodge, which is right by the door. And, you know, in our memorial garden, we have a stone there for Cameron.
He struggled with an addiction to painkillers. He had been sober about 2 years when we met, but he struggled for about 5 years with an addiction to painkillers.
We always say she comes at it from the side of loss, I come at it through the side of recovery.
He knew exactly what I was going through in trying to help my son because he experienced it firsthand.
Cameron's need to get clean, and he couldn't find a place that would help him. And so our goal is to be that place to help the kids. We provide group therapy, which is IOP, individual therapy, case management, and we provide a lot of structure and accountability here. One of the main goals here is to get the kids to be able to function on their own once they leave our treatment center.
With Serenity Mesa, it gives these kids a chance to rebuild their lives.
Well, as the saying goes, you know, I think Jennifer was handed lemons and she made lemonade.
I learned a lot about Cameron pretty much every day. I mean, Cameron is still a part of our lives. We see Cameron in every kid who comes through this facility. I'm the emotional one, so. So Cameron's legacy is here every day when another kid has to walk through our door to get help.
I feel like, you know, he's with us and his hand is helping us with Serenity Mesa. I definitely know that. I can feel him guiding us just to make the right decisions for these young people.
She took it upon herself to make that resource so that no other parents have to bury their son or their daughter.
Take me to another time when wrong wasn't right, before I was blind. Give me what I used to have, what good wasn't bad. Can you take me back? Now it's too late and I'm running alone on the highway, gonna make it my own. I'm breaking out the shackles and cutting the chains. Not gonna be another prisoner to your